You just installed Halo Infinite, you're looking to get into ranked, but you don't have any friends to play with. Well, your only option then is obviously solo queue. Or maybe your friends that you play with just aren't good enough for you and they're holding your rank back. So you've decided to play some solo queue. Whatever the reason, whether it's you don't have friends to play with, or they're just not on, or you just got the game and you want to meet some people, solo queue is something that a lot of players are going to play, even if it's not something that's necessarily ideal for every single person, because a lot of people, one of the tips they'll give you is to try and play with a team as much as possible. But today in this video, we're going to go over some specific tips that are going to help you win your solo queue games and grind the ladder specifically in solo queue. So with that said, let's jump right in. So the first tip that I'm going to give you, and this one's really basic and straightforward, is just communicate. I play a decent amount of solo queue and you'll be surprised how many people will start talking once they hear you calling out. However, it is very important that if you are going to play on open mic and you're going to use your microphone to call out, you need to be calling out useful things. Don't just start complaining. Don't start bitching at your teammates, because that just kills the vibe, or they just mute you. And so you need to make sure that you're actually calling out useful things like you would if you were playing with your friends. I guess if you're the type of person that would bitch at your friends, maybe don't do that if you're playing solo queue. However, if you're not going to use a mic and you're not willing to call out, because let's be real, not everyone wants to call out all the time, and on top of that, you're not always in the mood to call out. I'll be honest, there are definitely times that I play solo queue by myself where I just want to chill, focus on the game, and not call out. So if you're going to go that route, first of all, you still want to make sure that you have your audio set so that you can hear your teammates. They still might call out and you want to be able to respond to those call outs. But the other thing is ping. Halo Infinite has the new ping feature, which is brand new to Halo, and that's going to allow you to ping different parts on the map. And if you ping a room where you see an enemy, your Spartan will actually call out how many enemies are in there sometimes. So you want to be making sure that you're pinging where people are, maybe pinging power-ups, pinging objectives, and you can even use these in conjunctions with callouts on your mic. The ping is very strong, especially in solo queue, because it's something that's very obvious and it's on the screen, and your teammates are going to see your pings where they might ignore your callouts or not even have game chat on. You don't necessarily know, but they are definitely going to see your pings. So that is something you want to be using, is use the pings a ton and become comfortable with it. However, obviously don't die trying to ping things. If it's awkward to hit on your controller, only do it when you're safe and whatnot. The next tip actually goes off a little bit what we were talking about earlier, but that's to not tilt. So one thing that's really easy I found when you're solo queuing is you lose a few games, maybe you were playing well and your teammates just aren't helping you out as much as you want to. It gets frustrating and you can start to get tilted. That can lead to a lot of different things. One, you start to complain on your mic and we don't want that. Or you can also just get into a mindset where you're kind of tilt queuing and you're in a bad mind space, but you're still playing the game because you want to get your rank back, and that's where you don't want to be. If you find yourself starting to tilt, get away from the computer, play some social, take a break, and then come back to the game in 30 minutes or an hour or whenever later. The rank ladder isn't going anywhere and you don't have to tilt queue all the time, because that is the quickest and easiest way to kill your rank. You'll go from having a couple bad games and maybe losing 10, 15 CSR to losing 100 as you tilt queue a bunch of games in a row. I know personally I have definitely done that, and that is something you most definitely want to avoid. The next tip is going to be something that is way more solo queue specific, and that is to play around your teammates. Obviously, when you're playing Halo in a team game, you want to play around your teammates, but if you're playing with teammates or friends that you know, you can trust that they're going to make plays off of you a little bit more than when you're playing with randoms. And so when you're playing solo queue, if you're trying to win as much as possible, you want to try and play around what your teammates are doing. Maybe you see people being super passive, then you need to adapt your strategy in that game and play passive with them. Because if you're pushing and being aggressive all by yourself, you're going to feed kills, you're going to feed your life away, and it's not going to do any good for your team. Likewise, if you queue into a game and your teammates are playing really aggressive, but you'd rather play more passively, again, you need to kind of just adapt to how they're playing and make aggressive pushes with them, because the most important thing in solo queue is just play with your teammates. Pay attention to what they're doing, make pushes with your teammates, and you can try and do this without even calling out. Just notice, hey, my teammate's making a push, consciously make that push with them, help them out, put shots on the same people that they're putting shots on, and try and help your teammates out as much as possible, because that makes everyone's life easier. Likewise, in most cases, you also don't want to push off by yourself. Now, that isn't a blanket rule. There are cases where you need to push by yourself, or there are cases where it makes sense to make a flank, but in solo queue, they might not listen if you tell your teammates that you're going to make a flank, and they might not play off you the same way they should, so sometimes it can make a little bit more sense. Obviously, this is situational and you have to learn on your own, but sometimes it can make more sense just to play with your team rather than trying to make that flank or trying to make that solo play, because even though you can definitely make those plays, especially at lower ranks, as you get higher in the ranked ladder, as you maybe venture into competitive play, making those solo plays gets a lot harder, and if you just get in a good habit of playing around your teammates as much as possible, only making solo plays and solo pushes when you need to or when it makes most sense, this is going to help you out, and you're not going to go off and die by yourself and not have any backup, because that's what can happen. If you make a push all by yourself, maybe you even get someone one shot, or you get a kill and you get someone one shot. If your teammates are still on the other side of the map, they're not going to be able to clean up those kills, and your kill that you got or the damage you put in might be absolutely useless because there was no one to back you up. Next up is to play the objective. Now that is a very obvious tip. I'm sure you guys are thinking, wow, thank you. But here's the thing. You're playing solo queue, and you need to pay attention to when you play the objective. Now this tip also works for regular team play with your friends or with your teammates, but you need to make sure you're not tunneling the objectives. You have to focus on slaying first, objective second. But what I mean by that is not just playing your KD. You need to get a round of slays or a crucial slay or two, then play the objective. Maybe it's get 2 or 3 people down and then push up on the map, get ready for another set of slays, get those slays, and then pull a flag. Or maybe it's get 2 kills on a stronghold site and then capture that stronghold. Or it's clean out an oddball hold where you kill 2-3 people on the ball and then you can pick up the ball. But you need to make sure you're not tunneling those objectives. You don't just want to sprint to the stronghold every time you spawn, or pick up the ball anytime you're near it, or just beeline for the flag every time you see an opening. You need to make sure that you're doing these objectives when the enemies are dead or when you have teammates to back you up. Otherwise, you're just going to die trying to do the objective, which is how you're going to win the game. But if you're just throwing your life away repeatedly to try and do the objective, you're not doing anyone any good. Likewise, similar to this, you need to make sure you're not breaking setups and holds that your teammates might be having. Now, this is really important in things like oddball and strongholds, but it also can be pretty key in Slayer in certain parts of the map. And so what I mean by this is if your teammates are holding B and A maybe on live fire, don't solo push off to capture C while your teammates are kind of fighting on B. All you're going to do is force the spawns over to A. That might completely screw over your teammates, and so you have to be mindful of what's going on. If your teammates are losing A and you control B, then sometimes it does make sense to go and try and capture C to trade out those sites, but you don't just want to be breaking your holds on strongholds just to try and get the 3 cap all the time. And in a lot of cases, especially in solo queue, sometimes it makes more sense just to defend the sites that you're holding, slay out, and then if things go rough, then you go and capture the other points. This goes the same for oddball. If you have a good oddball hold on a map, maybe you're playing streets and you have it in subway, which is C, don't push out by yourself to try and get kills and be greedy. Stay with your teammates, defend the ball, play the setup, and make sure you're playing correctly. Likewise, if you're playing Slayer, don't just run your life away while your teammates have a good setup going just because you get antsy and you want to get some kills. The next step is again another normal Halo tip, but with kind of a solo queue twist, and that is to try and control the power weapons and power-ups, but also be mindful of where your teammates are. If Overshield on live fire just came up and you're the only one on that side of the map and you see 2 or 3 enemies coming toward it, give it up. You're not going to get it most likely. Maybe throw some nades and try and put pot shots on and see if you can make a play happen safely, but don't overcommit to that play because most likely you're just going to run your life into multiple people. Your teammates are going to be on the other side of the map and they're not going to be able to help anyways. So now instead of just losing Overshield, you're now going to lose Overshield and your life, which is going to give your opponents even more advantages. This goes the same for power weapons on other maps, and so you just want to be mindful of if it actually makes sense to make a play for the power up or the power weapon. Just pay attention to where your teammates are. If you think you can make the play safely, then go for it, or if you have backup, then go for it. But if you're just gambling to try and get it, or you're just going to sprint out there and try and grab the rockets and get a kill, most likely that it isn't going to work, and you should probably be playing a little bit safer. Maybe try and get shots on people trying to get the rockets, or throw a nade on them and see if you can get a double kill or something like that, and then go for the play. But don't just sprint out there and try and grab the power weapon right when it spawns if you don't have any backup. Another tip kind of based on that one is just like in any Halo game, make sure you're also picking up the non-power weapons. The non-power weapons in Halo are very strong. You have the plasma pistol, which a charge shot can rip off shields or can completely negate an overshield pickup. You have the mangler, which is just broken and amazing. It's a 1-shot and then a beatdown, or it's a 2-shot to break shields and then you can switch to your BR and finish them off with the 3rd shot. Or even things like the Needler have niche uses, and of course the Bulldog and the Heatwave are very good too, along with the other weapons that you you can pick up like the shock rifle and the stalker rifle depending on the map. Make sure you're picking these up because unlike the power weapons, which kind of give you a heads up when they're spawning, these are going to spawn on the weapon racks on the wall, and they're going to be there pretty often, especially in lower ranks, and you can carry and take over entire games purely off controlling something like the Mangler and making constant plays with it. Also, if you know the mechanic where you do 2 shots at the Mangler, drop the weapon and finish him off with the BR, that's just really satisfying and it's pretty fun to do, and it's very effective because dropping your weapon is faster than switching weapons, but that's kind of an advanced tactic. You don't need to do that. You don't even need to do that to get into Onyx, but it's really fun to do. So if it's easy for you to drop a weapon, if you have that bound to your controller or whatever you play on, try it out sometime. It's pretty fun. And last but not least, we're just going to talk about playing your life. Your life is the most valuable asset when it comes to solo queue. Now you have to be mindful. You can't just bait your teammates and let your teammates die and make pushes all by themselves and then run away and live your life. But if you're playing with your teammates properly, it makes a lot more sense most of the time to give up on a fight once you're one shot or once you're low on shields, rather than continuing to challenge and taking that 1v1 and trying to win that. Because if you back off, your teammates might clean them up, especially if you call it out, then they really might clean up the one shot that you have. You can get your shields back and then you can turn around and help them wherever they need, or you can even go and challenge the same person with full shields, see if it goes a little bit better. But you want to be playing your life. The longer your enemy spends trying to clean you up and kill you, the more time that your teammates have to take control of the map, to put shots down on people, to play the objective, to get power weapons, to do everything. The more annoying and skirmish that you can play is only going to help your teammates out because you're going to get a lot of attention. Obviously, you still need to be putting damage down on people. You can't just be running around, sprinting, sliding, trying to avoid everyone and not take any fights. You do need to be taking fights and putting damage on people, but if you're getting into that situation where you know you're both one shot, in a lot of cases, it makes more sense to back down and not take that fight. However, there are obviously situations where you have to challenge to the death and hope that you win that gunfight, but there are many situations where you can back off, especially if you're playing around a wall or something like that, and you can let your teammate try and clean up that kill. And that, guys, is going to do it for specific solo queue tips that I have. I hope this helps you guys that are playing solo queue. I know a lot of people do play solo queue as opposed to playing with friends or full teams or anything like that. So try some of these things out next time you play solo queue. See if they help you. See if you can grind up the ladder and get ranked a little bit higher, and maybe you can get all the way up to Onyx, which honestly isn't overly difficult in this game once you kind of have a basic gist of what's going on. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Put any other tips that you would give people for solo queue in the comments below. Let me know what other kind of tips videos that you guys would like, as I think these are a lot of help right now, especially with Halo Infinite being new. Other than that, I stream on YouTube now, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Just watch the page. That's all you got to do. And make sure you also follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. I do giveaways for credits. I tweet cool things, and you can get in touch with me. So that's pretty fun. And with that said, guys, I'll see you all next time.